In the year 1987, on The Tonight Show, legendary host Johnny Carson welcomed one of Hollywood's most iconic women, Bette Davis, for what would quietly become their final interview together. And what she revealed on that night was something no one expected. As the studio lights dimmed and the audience settled, the narrator speaks, saying, Johnny Carson leaned forward in his chair, studying Bette Davis with that unmistakable mix of curiosity and admiration. She was older now, but still carried the same fierce fire that made her a Hollywood titan. And on this night, she was ready to say things she had never said before. The narrator continues, building the moment. Johnny began by asking her about her legacy, the decades of films, the awards, the battles she fought in an industry that wasn't built for women with minds of their own. Bette paused, giving a small smile, and said something that silenced the entire room. She admitted that behind all her strength, behind the sharp tongue and bold attitude the world had come to admire, she had been fighting a private war, something she never expected to reveal on national television. The narrator deepens the tension. She spoke about the loneliness of fame, the roles she rejected that haunted her, the betrayals she experienced from people she once trusted, the years she felt Hollywood punished her for refusing to play by the rules. She revealed how the industry she helped shape had tried to push her out long before she was ready to go. Johnny sat speechless, realizing she wasn't giving an interview. She was telling a truth she had carried for decades. The narrator continues. Then, for the first time, Bette Davis opened up about her greatest fear, one she never admitted publicly, that after everything she had sacrificed, she wasn't sure she had been truly loved for who she was, but rather for what she represented. The audience didn't clap. They didn't breathe. They simply watched a legend remove the last piece of armor she had left. Bring the emotional impact higher. Johnny Carson's expression changed. Gone was the comedian, the entertainer, the quick-witted television icon. What remained was a man witnessing history, Bette Davis revealing the truth behind the persona that Hollywood created, celebrated, and eventually tried to forget. And the narrator closes. What she confessed that night, her regrets, her fears, the cost of fame, and the strength it took to survive it all, was something no one expected to hear. And when Johnny Carson thanked her, his voice wasn't hosting, it was trembling. Because he, and everyone watching, knew this was not just an interview. It was a goodbye. A moment of honesty that only someone who lived through the golden age of Hollywood could deliver. And that shocking truth she revealed would become part of her legacy forever. As the interview moved forward, Johnny Carson gently leaned back, sensing that Bette Davis had more to share, something heavier, something she had carried for years. She adjusted herself in the chair, her eyes narrowing the way they used to when she delivered one of her unforgettable lines on screen. But this wasn't acting. This was a woman stripping away the last layer of Hollywood magic. The narrator deepens the moment. Johnny asked her about survival, how she managed to outlive scandals, rivalries, and the brutal expectations put upon women in film. Bette gave a soft laugh, one filled with irony rather than humor. She said she survived not because she was strong, but because she had no other choice. She admitted that many nights she cried alone backstage, wondering if her career was over, wondering if she had lost pieces of herself just to stay relevant. The narrator continues with rising emotion. Then she revealed something that stunned even Johnny Carson. She confessed that some of the roles the world adored her for, the powerful women, the villains, the heartbreakers, were a reflection of her real life more than people understood. She said Hollywood didn't typecast her. Life did. And she often wondered if the price of authenticity had cost her the chance at true happiness. The narrator builds suspense. The audience stayed silent as she described the moments she nearly walked away from it all. She talked about betrayals from studios, the years she felt forgotten, the moments she would show up to work with a broken heart, but still perform like nothing was wrong. She admitted she was tired of pretending, tired of being strong, tired of carrying a legacy she never asked for but could never escape. The narrator pulls the scene closer. Johnny Carson looked at her, not as a host, but as a man realizing he was sitting across from someone who had lived 1,000 lives in one lifetime. He asked her what she wished she could change if she were given just one chance. Bette Davis looked down, took a breath, and said she wished she had allowed herself to be loved without pushing people away. She wished she didn't hide behind toughness, because sometimes that toughness cost her the very things she wanted most. The narrator heightens the atmosphere. That confession broke the room. People who had admired her for decades suddenly saw a woman who had carried pain silently, a woman who fought so hard to be respected that she forgot that she deserved gentleness too. Johnny Carson didn't interrupt. He didn't joke. He didn't rush. He simply listened, knowing that he was witnessing a rare moment, the truth behind a Hollywood legend spoken aloud for the first time. And the narrator closes Part 2. What she said next would stay with Johnny forever. She admitted that fame never healed her wounds. It only hid them. And as she spoke, the studio felt smaller, quieter, heavier, because everyone realized that Bette Davis wasn't giving an interview anymore. She was telling her story before someone else tried to rewrite it. As the interview grew heavier, the air inside the studio shifted into something almost sacred. Johnny Carson, who had interviewed presidents, icons, and legends, suddenly looked like a man humbled by the weight of another person's truth. Bette Davis crossed her hands gently, her fingers trembling, not from age, but from finally exposing wounds she had hidden for decades. Then she leaned forward, lowering her voice as if she feared the truth itself might be too loud. She said she had spent most of her life running toward success, believing it would fill the hollowness she felt since childhood. But the applause never lasted long enough. The awards never quieted the loneliness, and the spotlight that once felt warm had turned cold as she aged. The narrator intensifies the emotion. She confessed that the industry she gave her entire life to did not give her the same loyalty in return. When she grew older, roles disappeared. Friends distanced themselves. Studios stopped calling. She described the moment she realized she was aging in Hollywood, a place where women were expected to vanish quietly. Bette said she felt like a ghost walking through a world she helped build, watching as younger faces took the places she once fought so hard for. But the tragedy wasn't that they replaced her. It was that they forgot her. The narrator deepens the tension. Johnny Carson's expression softened into something almost paternal. He asked her the question everyone wanted to know, but no one dared to ask. Do you ever regret becoming Bette Davis, the legend? She paused, looking out toward the audience, but not really seeing them. and with a voice that shook the world, she said she regretted how much she sacrificed for a career that could never love her back. She regretted the nights she spent alone in hotel rooms, crying after filming scenes that mirrored her own heartbreak. She regretted staying strong for so long that people forgot she was human. The narrator builds suspense as Bette reveals even more. She admitted that one of her deepest pains came from motherhood, not the act of being a mother, but the guilt of never giving her daughter the time and softness she needed. She said she loved her child with every fiber of her being, but feared she had been too consumed by survival, too hardened by the pressures of Hollywood to show it the way a child deserved. That confession forced Johnny to swallow hard, visibly moved, as the audience sat frozen. The narrator continues with rise and emotional intensity. She went on to say that the roles she played were easier than the life she lived. On camera, she could control the ending. In real life, she couldn't. And the older she became, the more she realized how little control she ever truly had. She said the most painful truth was knowing that the world adored Bette Davis, the actress, but never bothered to understand Ruth Elizabeth Davis, the woman beneath the icon. The narrator draws the moment closer. Johnny Carson slowly leaned in, asking her what she feared the most now, at this stage in her life. Bette looked him directly in the eyes and said she feared fading away. Not dying, she had made peace with that, but being forgotten, her truth erased, her legacy rewritten by people who never knew her. She didn't want her life to be reduced to gossip, rumors, or old headlines. She wanted people to know she tried to love, tried to survive, tried to be human in a world that didn't allow weakness. And the narrator ends part 3 with gripping suspense. The studio sat silent, the weight of her honesty pressing into every corner. For the first time, it felt less like an interview and more like a final confession from a woman who had carried too many secrets for too long. What she revealed next would not only shock Johnny Carson, but change the way millions viewed her legacy forever. In 1987, Bette Davis revealed to Johnny Carson the loneliness behind her fame, the private battles and regrets Hollywood never saw, shocking everyone.